I want to talk about the now vice presidential nominee for the Republicans, JD Vance. And Scott, I actually asked you this before the convention. If Donald Trump is doing really well, is Vance the right pick versus if he needs something extra there? And now there seems to be some people in the party who are a little bit having some buyer's remorse. Axios reports this morning, on the whole, the feeling is JD Vance doesn't add much. Another House Republican said of Trump picking Vance, and I think we have a graphic of this, and now with Kamala at the top, the capacity to have expanded the map a little bit would have been much more beneficial. Regrets about Vance, Scott?
I don't know. I think people are imbuing too much power and ability in a vice presidential choice, whether he chose Vance or anybody else. I just don't personally believe these people traditionally, usually make all that much of a difference. Is J.D. Vance ever going to be a Vegas act? No. But that's okay. I mean, the show here for the Republicans is Trump. They're going to rise and fall based on Trump, his image, and whether people want to return him to the Oval Office. I don't think picking a different person would have necessarily expanded the map. I mean, heck, it's already expanded. I mean, Republicans are now competing in states they haven't won in several cycles. So I think some of this is just carping about by people. Maybe their favorite candidate didn't get chosen, but I'm not too worried about this because ultimately this ticket rises and falls on Trump and really nobody else.
People do love the Sphere in Las Vegas, Scott, just saying. There was a bit of, I think you can call it opposition research or digging on J.D. Vance, where they unearthed an interview from 2021 where Vance was with Tucker Carlson and he criticized then Vice President Kamala Harris, as well as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Pete Buttigieg for not having children, saying basically because they didn't have children, they didn't have the best interests of the country at heart. Childless cat ladies was a phrase that J.D. Vance used. And when people saw that over the last day, Tim, that's unleashed some holy hell, including from Jennifer Aniston, who posted on Instagram overnight, and this caught a lot of people's attention this morning. She wrote, "All I can say is, Mr. Vance, I pray that your daughter is fortunate enough to bear children of her own one day," Aniston wrote. "I hope she will not need to turn to IVF as a second option because you are trying to take that away from her, too." Again, this is something Vance said some time ago, Tim, but how much do you think Democrats can or should exploit this?
Yeah, there's another video of him that's emerging, making those comments. Once again, I think Democrats should talk about this. I think the best way I've heard it talked about is from the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, who just keeps saying, these guys are weird. Why are they talking about other people's children? Why is this a position that a vice presidential candidate is taking? And it's completely alienated. It doesn't help him whatsoever, but it's so J.D. Vance that he's just an inflammatory pontificator. I mean, is this good for single conservative women, for people who want to use IVF, who are struggling to have children? It's just an example, I think, of why J.D. is a problem on the ticket. He doesn't expand for Trump. He doubles down. It's a testosterone ticket that I think is going to explode the gender gap in this election.
Very quickly, Scott.
I'm surprised. Yeah, I'm surprised that Tim is worried about these comments from 3 or 4 years ago. Just 60 seconds ago, he said things that Kamala Harris said 3 or 4 years ago shouldn't matter. No voter is going to care about that. They only care about the future. But we got to care about some, thing J.D. Vance said in an interview before he was ever even elected U.S. Senator from Ohio. I guess double standard, maybe.
2021 while he was running.
All right, Scott Jennings, Tim Hogan, I appreciate the discussion this morning. I think for viewers, they can see where this is headed, sort of the parameters of where the discussion will be over the next few days. Really appreciate your time, guys.
Republicans and right-wing media are wasting no time in attacking the vice president. The New York Post proclaiming her as America's first DEI president, a racist broadside that's echoing across the far right.
100%. She was a DEI hire.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children.
Then there's the DEI press secretary telling you that the DEI vice president is the future of the party here. And so the future looks kind of dim for the Democrats here, but this is no shocker either. Kamala Harris, she's the original Haktua girl. That's the way she got where she is.
All right, let's discuss with the former Democratic mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms, the New York Times, Maya King, and the Washington Post senior editor at large, Robin Given. Mayor, let me start with you first. I mean, a lot of this stuff is just absolutely repugnant. What's your response to that when you hear these attacks? I guess it was to be expected.
Yeah, it makes me so angry. And I'm not sure what the campaign strategy is when your intent is to offend everyone except straight white men. It is absolutely ridiculous. As someone who went through 3 rounds of in vitro fertilization, the notion that you would take a swipe at someone because they don't have children is absolutely incredible to me. But beyond that, the reality is that the more time we spend on this fifth grade silliness, the less time we're spending on talking about the real issues in this campaign. And head to head on the issues, Kamala Harris outbest JD Vance and Donald Trump every single step of the way. So I hope that we can get back to focusing on the issues. Donald Trump's celebration of getting rid of Roe, with the Dobbs decision, also with Project 2025, what it will do to our Department of Education, what it will do to Social Security, Medicare recipients, and the list goes on. Let's focus on the issues and let's let them have their silly time while we go out and do the work and vote.
And Maya, I mean, what is this DEI stuff? I mean, we've heard this from a number of members of Congress. We saw it in the New York Post. Why is that line of attack reverberating on the far right, do you think?
Well, this kind of line of talking started, I think, with the Supreme Court decision that overturned affirmative action. And it was also sort of an outgrowth of what we've been seeing from Republicans for many years, which is railing against efforts for diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is what DEI stands for. But this has been a pattern of conversation on the right for some time, that any people of color in positions of power are considered not qualified, particularly women. And I've spent quite a bit of time at Trump rallies. I was at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee last week, and this was certainly something that came up. And this was in a largely white crowd where you saw many people on the right very much criticizing women and people of color in positions of power and sort of delegitimizing them. And so what we're seeing now coming from Republicans, I'll also note reporting from Politico that said that this is that Republicans should lay off criticizing the vice president on the grounds of her race and gender. You know, it's all very unsophisticated in the way that they're mentioning it, but it's also not very surprising.
Yeah, I mean, there are these racist attacks, but also sexist, misogynist attacks. Robin, we heard Trump's running mate, JD Vance, refer to Harris as a, quote, childless cat lady. We should note the actress Jennifer Aniston, who does not have children, posted that clip on Instagram and said this, quote, "I truly can't believe this is coming from a potential vice president of the United States. All I can say is, Mr. Vance, I pray that your daughter is fortunate enough to bear children of her own one day. I hope she will not need to turn to IVF as a second option because you are trying to take that away from her too." I mean, these kinds of attacks, I mean, they offend, I mean, just about anybody, I would think. I mean, it's just extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, someone who covers politics per se. I observe politics. And I have to say that as someone who does not have children, I find it really striking that there is this characterization that sort of the primary purpose of women is to, in fact, bear children. And if they don't do that, then they have somehow failed in their purpose. I would also say that I think a lot of this reflects a degree of fear in this country, and this idea that sort of the possibilities and the riches are quite limited. And if someone gets their fair share of it, then someone else loses out. And then the last thing I would say is that I think it also reflects the way in which we still, unfortunately, live in silos. The fact that Republicans and those who are critical of Kamala Harris can speak about her in such terms really suggests that, there is this distance and dehumanizing of someone. And I think if we weren't so siloed, just in terms of the diversity of our friend group, that it would be more difficult to do that.